welcome to another episode. This one we're going to talk about variables. So let's get started. So what is a variable? Well, it's a way in the program that you can actually store a value, and it's something that actually will change over time or can change over time. So let's think about what are some things that you might want to store. You can think about like if you're playing a game or if you're doing anything else on your computer, what might you actually want to store? So some of the things you might store and come up with is a score, so like the score of your game, the number of lives you actually have left in the game, any XP or experience points, the location of any objects, so maybe the X or Y position, or if it's 3D, some place in the Z plane, or what level you're on. So those are all kinds of things you might want to store. Now, to name a variable, you have to give it a name. The name needs to have alphabetic, so basically A to Z, and it can be lowercase or uppercase, and then from 0 to 9, and you can also use underscore. You can't use the dashes, even though I'm showing them here, to represent going from A to Z. Now, how do you actually do it? Well, you actually just write it down like this. You say var, which means you're saying it's a variable, and you can call it A, and then you can set an initial value like equals to 0. So that's a simple variable name. Another one you might be able to do is to do like var and number of lives. You might set it off to be 10. You can also do just really long ones like var Bob is way cool and I always think he is awesome equals 5. Now, you might want to not actually use a really long one like that because you do have to type it, and it also takes up space in your code. So what can you store in variables? One of the things that we've seen already are integers. So what are integers? Here's a couple of examples. We have like 2, 78, negative 3,703, and 0. So it's basically any whole number, and so no decimal place, and it can be positive or negative and includes 0. The other thing you want to do with variables is you want to make sure you pick an appropriate name. So you could, in your program, name all your variables. So A could be the player's score, A1 could be how many lives they have left, A12 could be the enemy's health, A3 could be what level they're on, and A4 could be whether the game is still running or not. Now, as you're going through, if you have just A, A1, A2, A3, A4, it's actually going to be very confusing to you and your program, especially when you come back to it. So you want to try to use names that are more appropriate. So you'd use like score or lives, like we talked about before. So when you write down var, you're actually declaring, and that means you're saying, this thing that's coming after here, A, is a variable. And so that's how the program actually knows that it's a variable. And so here we've declared two variables, A equals 0 and B equals 5. So we've done var A equals 0 and var B equals 5. So now we actually have two variables. So now that we have them, we can actually use them. So we can, and this is not a very useful thing or something you would probably do, but you would say A equals A plus B. Now many times you might have done in algebra where you're balancing the equations and you're like, well, you can't actually balance that, or the only way to balance it is if A and B, or if everything is 0. But this is actually not algebra, it's more assignment. So whatever is on the right is going to get assigned to whatever is on the left. So the A on the left is going to actually get the result of the current value of A, which is 0, plus the value of B, which is 5, so it would also get 5. One of the other things you can do is this is how you do different math operations. So addition is just the plus, subtraction is the minus. So multiplication, you actually use the asterisk symbol, and that's because there is no special dot symbol that you would actually use. And for division, instead of a normal division symbol, we actually just use a slash, and that actually shows that it's going to be division. There are some other data types you can also store. You might have a game where you actually want to have money, so you might use decimal places like that. And those are called floating points. You could also use for gravity. That's another common one, is using a variable for how much gravity there is. And the last one, you might use it for strings, for like what is the current player's name. It could be Mr. Kitty, or it could be anything else. So strings, floatings, and those are mostly the ones that we'll be using. So that's it for variables.